Hi and welcome back. And today I'm going to be talking about how lucky I feel for not only having survived sepsis once, but 3 times when I was going through chemotherapy for Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I feel very fortunate because not only did I survive cancer, I also survived sepsis on those 3 occasions. I do realise how lucky I am because sepsis can kill you. In fact, sepsis in the UK kills more people than breast and bowel cancer combined. In fact, one of the times that I had sepsis, I ended up in the hospital's resus department. My poor wife was put into the family room, and when you go into resus with sepsis, they put 2 cannulas into you because their aim is to get intravenous antibiotics into you as quickly and as fast as possible. And for me, it was quite scary actually, because I'd never been in the resus department before. But I was fortunate because they knew it was sepsis, because I was going through chemotherapy, and because I'd been through it before, they straight away treated me in the right way. Others aren't so fortunate because oftentimes when someone has sepsis, they're not aware it's sepsis. They get diagnosed incorrectly sometimes, or people actually don't even go to the hospital. I'm guilty of that. Even though I had a temperature, I was trying to avoid going to the hospital. I was actually a terrible patient, and I did put my wife through a lot. I know I was a nightmare, I was very stubborn, and one time I possibly nearly left it too late. And what I didn't appreciate at the time, whilst I was in the hospital a week at a time on intravenous antibiotics, was my wife had to go back to an empty house not knowing what the outcome would be. And I didn't even realise the seriousness of sepsis until I read about it after I'd been through it a couple of times. And without quick treatment, sepsis can lead to multiple organ failure and even death, which is pretty scary really. So of course I'm very thankful for the doctors and nurses of Bournemouth Hospital. Not that I need to tell you this, but going through sepsis isn't very nice at all. I had a fever, but at the same time I felt cold and shivery. I had nausea and I was vomiting. I felt very, very weak. I had a high heart rate. I looked like death. I was all very pale and very clammy. But even with all of that, and even though I was feeling unwell and weak, I still insisted that I walked to the ward without the use of a wheelchair. I was extremely stubborn. Because I was going through chemotherapy for cancer treatment, they tried to get me into the oncology ward wherever possible when something was going wrong, and in this case it was sepsis. When I turned up, the doctor that I got to know very well, he took one look at me and said, "Russell, you don't look very well at all." In fact, he did say to me, "You may have left it too late this time." The goal of the hospitals in the UK when you turn up with sepsis is to take blood cultures and then to get you onto intravenous antibiotics as soon as possible, and normally within the hour. And I have to say that Bournemouth Hospital were always very good at this, and I would have a cannula in a bed having intravenous antibiotics. And you know the crazy thing is, the reason why I used to leave it too late and the reason why I didn't want to go to the hospital was because at the time, well I probably still am if I'm honest with myself, is I'm scared of needles. I have a needle phobia. So the last thing I wanted was to have another cannula put into me. And I knew that I was going to be in there for a week. I knew that I'd have to keep having my cannulas changed every couple of days and then from one arm to the other. And on many occasions, they would take several attempts at putting the cannulas in. Now that sounds a bit pathetic really. And when I think about it, how crazy that is, that I was scared of a small needle going into my arm versus the real potential outcome of leaving sepsis too late and having multiple organ failure and even possibly dying. But at the time, I didn't know. Like many people don't know about sepsis. There is more awareness now than there used to be, but I bet there's a lot of people out there that still are not aware of the problems that sepsis can cause. I didn't understand what sepsis was, and I had no idea of the danger that I was in. What I hadn't fully appreciated the time that I went to the hospital and the doctor said I may have left it too late was that my immune system had flatlined. Something called neutrophils that they check on in your bloods had almost gone down to 0, which is your first line of immunity defense. So things were pretty serious, really. And there was me saying, no, I know my immune system, to my wife, and I'm fine. Because I used to have these injections that used to stimulate my immune system. So I thought it was all okay, but actually it wasn't. In fact, on this occasion, my temperature went over 40 degrees C, which is 104 degrees Fahrenheit. And it was a fast approaching 41 degrees C, which is nearly 106 degrees Fahrenheit. And 41.11 degrees C, which is 106 degrees Fahrenheit, is considered a medical emergency. And if that high level of body temperature isn't lowered quickly, you can suffer organ damage or even death. And just for those that don't realise, your normal body temperature should be 37 degrees C or 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. When your body exceeds the temperature of 106 degrees Fahrenheit or 41.11 degrees C, you've got what's called hyperpyrexia. And it's hyperpyrexia which is causing the medical emergency. And if this is left untreated, organ damage and death can occur. So my take home from this is clearly to not ignore the signs of sepsis. Early recognition is obviously key, and treatment is necessary as soon as possible. So the symptoms will include loss of consciousness, severe breathlessness, a high temperature, fever, or actually low body temperature, a change in mental state like confusion or disorientation, slurred speech, cold, clammy, pale or mottled skin, a fast heartbeat, fast breathing, chills and shivering, severe muscle pain, feeling dizzy or faint, nausea and vomiting, and diarrhea. So if you have any of the above, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have sepsis, but it could well mean that you might need to speak to a doctor, dial 999 if in emergency, but please do not leave it like I did on a couple of occasions. But I'm fortunate, I'm here to tell the story. Anyway, thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Take care and bye for now.